grit and strength they have. Before I can go on and on about the story.
Thank you everyone for actually making time for this little event today. I have known Shiv at Mindtree, and we sort of struck a friendship, I would say, which has not been nurtured with the consistency that it probably deserved, but nevertheless we've kind of followed each other a little bit off and on. And when this book was suggested for release, that I should do it, and I immediately agreed, because it's the kind of thing you should support, I thought. And I read I told Time I was not here. I just read the introduction to the book that he had written. It's a very good introduction. I was struck by it, and I thought a little about what to say, which is about giving a framework to the book itself and how we can approach it. And it was done online, that release event, and they were very gracious about it with me. And I met Achyuta, whom I have not known so long, but I have known him long enough, maybe about 10 years now. And we have struck kind of. Article 377 thing was discussed. Mukundji actually was the one who told me. He's an RSS, a very senior person in the RSS hierarchy. I didn't know him very well those days. It was just beginning days when I met him. And he said something casually, and it was extraordinary. He says, see, we don't have a notion of ban in Sanatana Dharma. We don't ban any human practice. Humans exist and their different ways exist. But what we have in a Sanatana Dharma, he said, is preference. So there are 8 styles of marriages. Actually, that also occurs, one of the characters says here, right? Either Ulupi or Chitrangada, one of them says, that there are 8 types of, marriages, and you can choose any one of them. The preferred one is the one that is done most often or aspired to most often, but nothing is banned, he said. And Shatabdani Ganesh, I believe, he did not tell me, but he told a friend of mine, he said, why do they go and seek the opinion of somebody who's done culture studies or literature studies? I mean, it's all good if you do, but I'm saying you should know a little bit of your own before you try to understand somebody else. It's like, somebody doing PhD in African studies, it's like, I find that stunning, if you don't know anything about yourself, what is that? So, what is this idea that, you must learn from them about yourself, that you have to be named by them and you have to understand everything through their eyes. I believe Shatabdani Ganesh said they should ask us, and we will say there is no reference to humiliation on gender preference. See, if you have gone through that drill, you'll say, Judith Butler who said his gender is performance. But that idea is very embedded in the notion of stories where nobody is banned, nobody is forbidden. The Gandharva type of wedding, no permission sought, no permission received. It is still sacred because the man and woman, actually exchange vows of some nature. Why is that important? See, if you remove everything in the Sanatana wedding, okay, everything you remove, in one way or the other, you cannot remove the idea of Saptapadi and the idea of complementary that follows it. Whichever way you put it, whatever forms it has taken, many recension, northern hours, Satsva, Suno Janame Jai, translated to Hindi, and in Kannada it's actually translated as Kedu Janame Jaya, a very famous play, Srirangaradu. And it is the idea of what Janame Jaya is told is a burden that this event carries. Now, that we will tell you or we will discuss this, and we have to tell others that you people have written this. There are two writers here who have done this. They have to tell this story, and this is a metaphor of who we are, our orality, that we have preserved this. No other colonized place has kept its own like India has done. Everybody has lost it, either surrendered or forgotten. Only India, with great fights among ourselves, we have kept it. With false enmities, we have kept it. But the thing is that orality is this telling. Hingittu kelu. This one begins very quickly. He comes to this. It is this itihasa kavya here that shows us things that are, things that may come to me and come to be, and things that were, things that are meant not to be, and things that never were. Is a tale that to you I now confer. This, not to recite, would be to err. For in small things mundane, oft ignored and shown disdain, are morsels of heaven hiding in plain sight. And then he says, immutable, O king, is dharma, then, now, and forever. The dhruva to which to set your compass of karma, which is action, not a plaything, it is of king and seer, or bound by ritual, homa and yagna, not a contrivance of grantha or war. It exists even in the ordinary, not just in gesture grand, neither is it for only philosophy to command. Invisible treads dharma beside you and me, tells one's last breath even from mother's womb. For a life well lived, this is key. Seek it, learn it, and abide, else you invite doom. For all him, her, me, and thee, it extracts meticulous fee, for it examines with a fine-tooth comb. Follow the dharma, escape maya, both are but parts of Bhagavan's divine Leela. Know that dharma and you, your Atma, both are Sanatana. Okay, Swiss. Now if somebody asks what is dharma?
Being present here for this discussion, and we would like to start off. And when Prakash mooted the idea of having a conversation around this book, I was excited primarily because I saw that I didn't see the being present here for this discussion, and we would like to start off. And when Prakash mooted the idea of having a conversation around this book, I was excited primarily because I saw that I didn't see the so whenever Parva happens next time, please do watch. It's an amazing play which runs for 9 hours, and it stays true to the soul of S.L. Bhairappa's book, and it's phenomenal production by Rangayana. So we should say kudos to Prakash for bringing that onto the stage with a great effort. So next, one of the things that Prakash mentioned earlier was about the Madhavi story.
Yeah.
So the Madhavi story is constructed fascinatingly. In fact, when I started it, I didn't know where it was going. Because I mean it's a
when I first read it, even I felt it that way.
yeah. So when I started the story, I didn't actually think it will end where it will end. I started, this is just another technique which is used, but then towards the end I realized that technique has been brilliantly chosen, and extremely well executed. So congratulations to the author. And how did this come about? I mean, this is a danger we have always seen when our people read Indian
Traditional
Itihasa
accounts.
Puranas traditions through the Western eyes.
Yeah.
So and the Western interpretations based on their vision through their prisms. So this brings out the importance of telling our stories in our language. How did this story come about?
Yeah, it's an important story.
Yeah.
Why this anthology? I would like to take a little time and elaborate because this is important. I'll go back in time a little bit. As a young boy, I was a voracious reader, and the first Amara Chitra Katha comic that I read was Savitri. I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I do not recollect now, but I just read it, and I won't say I was. It was a fascinating story, by itself, and that's it. I kept moving. I moved on, read many more stories, and I had the opportunity to be engaged with Itihasa Purana very significantly since childhood, and there are many such stories like Savitri. You will not at once think of it as any remarkable. If you read the other stories, like Shandilya Dugata is really a remarkable story which comes in 3 pages and goes off in Mahabharata, and characters like Subhadra, let's say. There are so many things that we do not know. So we do not know that she anchors Parikshit, when nobody else is there. So like that, we can cover 300 women. And if we come to the modern era, and if you add people like Shandilya Dutta and so many others, there's another sage called Chandili, another fascinating story. She teaches the lesson to Garuda. And like that, if you do, from Itihasa Purana, you can get 1,000 beautiful stories. And those beautiful stories come and go in 20 shlokas. Then if you come to the modern era, in every century, I'm talking about, Maurya forward, especially in the Gupta period. In every century, you will get at least 10 prominent women. These stone inscriptions have recorded them. And if you just go to literature, you will get some more. And if you come into the Chalukya era and the Rashtrakuta era, it's just...
I would request Shikumar to...
This is Manjula. Manjula wrote the story on Damayanti. She is also quite a known author. She's recently published a novel on Devayani. And she's also, I think a couple of translations are going to come out soon. Ajeya, if you know in Kannada, Babu Krishnamurthy's. And he is the one who has reimagined Shakuntala as the mother of Bharata, who rules the story on Ulupi. And she writes a lot for children also. I'll briefly summarize the characters that they've written and what is the essence that is brought out, because for us each character had to stand for a certain essence. In the case of Damayanti, this is one of the most celebrated love stories in the tradition. If you ask which is the greatest love story, if you ignore Krishna, Rukmani and Rama Sita, but I will still say, even if you add them, for me Nana Damayanti is the greatest love story. It's in this story also, 2 things are important. One is the lovable Nada is extremely important. Nada represents the epitome.
Be engaging, and if the stories have to be engaging, there has to be a strong character. It has to be a love story. If it is a love story, it's so much easier to read. And if they have strength of character and if they command admiration, so it is easier to place them as some kind of a role model. So yeah, and Damayanti fits the role. So
current works, what are you working on other than this anthology?
Right now, I'm not working on any novel or any story. I have a few thoughts. One thing is a natural or logical succession to this would be the story of Bharata, which I would like to flesh out. So yeah, I'm doing some research on that, but no concrete plans as of yet.
I have a question. See, that's in the story you begin by her, her contemplative mood, where she, without too much bitterness, but some amount of wistfulness or sadness, she doesn't understand why she has been abandoned by her parents, right? So it recurs in irony when Dushyant also abandons her, there. But at that time, when I was reading it, I thought, some breakdown, something will happen. But she's so feisty that she says, you were a fool. She says, to him. No, the thing is, are you really conscious that she's dealt with it once and she knows how to deal with it now? Is that a sense of it there? Because typically people say it happened to me again, then it will go into a kind of depressed mood.
Well, yes, she has dealt with it, but then her upbringing, her background is such, she's lived in forest all through. She's not the one who will break down. She will fight it. And when Dushyanta says, what credibility do you have? It actually touches her on nerve, and it infuriates her. It in fact she comes out like a fire there. So yeah, there are two ways they could rise to some other level, and Shakuntala does rise to that level. So yeah, I mean that's how I thought about it, and that's how it is in Mahabharata as well.
She's also the daughter of Vishwamitra.
Absolutely.
And that parable making is also, I want to mention that, when she takes, the son and shows the lion family, in mourning because the king is gone. It's very beautiful.
That's the imagination that the tradition allows.
Yeah.
And actually, it is in Mahabharata, not exactly. It's in Drona Parva. When it happens that Yudhishthira is lamenting Abhimanyu's death, and at that point he has a conversation with Narada. Narada says that even a great king, Chakravarti Bharata, did not escape death. So at that point he narrates the story briefly, and in the literature it is such that Bharata is always teasing animals, he is fighting with them, and there is one line in that Bharata stopped when Shakuntala asked him to. So I thought, let's expand this.
It's important because this is how the story.
In this, there are some insights which are quite valuable to readers who are not familiar with the story. So, really well done. I mean, it's quite well written and stuff. So, how did you decide on writing a story about Ulupi, who is like, as Shukman said, it comes in bits and pieces across various stages, training Babravahana once and then bringing up his arrows and all that. So how did you put it together? How did you arrive at this character to be written about, and then how did you go about process?
Actually, I did not think about retelling. I mean, the problems that exist in the versions which are distorted, all those I was not exposed to. I'm quite pure in the way that I knew only the traditional version through Amar Chitakatha, and we all wrote C. Rajagopalachari's Mahabharata exams in 10th grade, high school. So I was not aware of this at all. I mean, I feel quite illiterate with respect to that, but the only motivation that I had was that I want to write a positive story. Because I have seen Ulupi versions in which she is with her brother conniving against Chitrangada and these kind of things. I don't think any of the women from those times were conniving. Even the wives of Duryodhana or even Ravana, they were all, I think, very pure in nature. So there were none which were impure. So I felt a little bad that these kind of narratives have come up. But I didn't think it was to this extent. Only when Shiv Kumarji mentioned it, did I realize, oh yeah, it is quite bad. So of all the characters that I saw, I found her that she's a mother, first of all. I think actually I did not think about retelling, I mean the problems that exist in the versions which are distorted. All those I was not exposed to. I'm quite pure in the way that I knew only the traditional version through Amar Chitakatha, and we all wrote C. Rajagopalachari's Mahabharata exams in 10th grade, in high school. So I was not aware of this at all. I mean, I feel quite illiterate with respect to that, but the only motivation that I had was that I want to write a positive story. Because I have seen Olupi versions in which she is with her brother conniving against Chitrangada and these kind of things. I don't think any of the women from those times were conniving. Even the wives of Duryodhana or even Ravana, they were all, I think, very pure in nature. So there were none which were impure. So I felt a little bad that these kind of narratives have come up. But I didn't think it was to this extent. Only when Shiv Kumarji mentioned it, did I realize, oh yeah, it is quite bad. So of all the characters that I saw, I found her that she's a mother, first of all. I think one distinguishing factor was she brought up the son of the other wife of her husband. Even that is not distinguishing enough, because we have Kunti doing the same, or we had other instances. Here she chooses to do this herself, and she goes and approaches Chitrangada herself. And I feel that that her generosity shown in the face of
Take more time to discuss and talk and make results. So hope we get more such opportunities to discuss.